Welcome everyone. Let's continue with our introduction to Rhino. By now we should have done 2D tools and commands, surface tools, and now we're ready to move on to open and closed polysurfaces. So let's work from the top of this worksheet to the bottom. The first command that we have on here, and I've got two examples. This command is revolve, and here's how we do this. We need some kind of profile curve like this one here, and we also need an axis, and here's how we do this. I've got my profile curve selected, so I'm going to go ahead and type revolve in the command bar. And the command bar is asking me the start of the revolve axis, so that'll be the top of this line, and then it wants the end, so that'll be the bottom of this line, and then it asks the start angle. So let me change views here for a second. I want to start this somewhere on the actual profile shape, so how about this point right here? And I'm just going to walk it all the way around and bring it back to the original point, click, and then enter. And if I just select this revolved surface, drag it down here, our construction geometry is exactly where we left it. It was only used to create the surface. And if I check the command history, it says one open poly surface added to selection. Cool. And if I want to close this up somehow, maybe like we did before with the surface tools, surface from planar curves, maybe I can choose this curve and maybe join it all. And let's see how we did. One closed poly surface added to selection. So this is ready to be printed. Well, first, of course, we have to turn it into an STL, slice it in either Cura or Prusa or something, and turn it into G-code, and then we can print it. All right. Give a try. Do this yourself. Create some interesting profile shape in the space here. Give it an axis. To do this, by the way, just as a reminder, I had this laying down kind of like, oops. I do all of my 2D work in the top viewport. The advantage of that is it's just easier to visualize 2D geometry from the top viewport. And by the way, when you establish curves from the top viewport and then check them in perspective, they are always in perfect agreement with the origin of our Cartesian plane here, the X and Y axes indicated in red and green, which defaultly populate on your workspace when you open Rhino. Everything that you create from the top viewport is going to be Z-axis neutral. It's going to start at the origin, and you'll have one basically flat place for all of your 2D stuff to go. And it's a good organizational tool. All right. Next, let's try split. So this is a completed split here, but I've got a fresh closed poly surface for us to work with. So let's use this rectangle and let's turn it into a surface because we need a surface to perform a split. I'm going to use surface from planar curves. And I'm going to bring this surface over here somewhere. As long as it intersects, it interferes with this cube. That's all I really want. Okay. So now that they're overlapping in three-dimensional space, I can type split in the command bar, and the command bar asks me select objects to split. That's just going to be this cube, not quite a cube, but it's a prism anyway. And press enter when done, and select the cutting object. That's going to be the plane, the surface that we made, and then enter. Now let's just select one part of this. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to delete our plane. Let me raise this up a little bit higher here. And guess what? If we wanted to, just like we have been all along, if we wanted to seal up this prism into a closed poly surface, we're going to use the surface from planar curves tool, create a surface, and then join everything together. And now if I click, this is one closed poly surface added to selection. Extrude CRV. This is another really great one. Probably should have covered this earlier. With this rectangle selected, easy as this, extrude CRV, and you can immediately see my extrusion following my cursor here. I can also specify how tall it should be by typing in numbers indicating inches. So 12 would be that. I can also, in the command bar, there's a lot of different options here. Both sides. So if you have both sides set to yes, now it's going to extrude in both directions. So I'm going to go back to no for that. Also, solid is set to no, but what if I do yes? And then finish the extrusion about here, and then select it. One closed extrusion added to selection. So that's fine. It's not a closed poly surface, but if I want it to be something that I can print quickly with it selected, in the command bar, I just type mesh, and then it'll ask me how many polygons. That doesn't really matter right now, so I'm just going to press OK. And you'll notice our object changed a little bit. Let's check it out. All right, so there's two things living in the same place. This is the closed extrusion, which I don't need anymore. But this is something that can print. So cool, that was fast. All right, what about extrude SRF? So in this case, we need a surface to begin with. So I'm going to make one just like that. And then with this selected, I'm going to type extrude SRF in the command bar. And this has a lot of the same qualities as our extrude CRV. I can choose both sides. Solid, I can keep that as yes, or I can do no. Let's go back to yes. Delete input, I never really do that. You can if you want to, though. And because our input is this little surface down here. So let's check it out. One closed poly surface added to selection. Well, that was really fast. Okay. How about extract SRF? Okay. So in this case, we've got a closed poly surface. So I'm going to deselect it this time and then just type extract SRF. And let's just try one of these here. Okay. Let's start with one. There we go. Let me put it back. And, okay, one closed poly surface. Great. And let me redo that command, extract srf, and let me take out two sides. Oops. Okay, that one, and this one. Ah, there we go. So you've got a multi-sided solid. You can pick off parts and modify them as needed. All right. Oh, okay. So explode. One closed poly surface added to selection. If with this selected, and I can do this either from the surface tools set or the curve tools set, I can explode. And now none of these surfaces are joined. And I can pick them all apart. Okay. Now, here's a really interesting one. Extrude, curve, tapered. So you can start with, let's do a couple of these together. Let me get my curve tools set ready. I'm going to go back to the top viewport because I think it's just a lot more comfortable to create foundational geometry from the top viewport. Let's do, let's craft a new shape just using the single line tool. It's going to be an imperfect triangle, kind of like this. And I'll go ahead and join it all for now. And I'll also do an ellipse from center, like this. All right, I'll go back to perspective. And with the triangle selected, I'll do extrude CRV tapered, and I can just arrow down to tapered right here. Now, automatically it has an idea of how this tapered extrusion should come together. But as we often do, our command line has a lot of different things for us to choose from. So solid is checked as yes. I'll turn it off just for fun. And draft angle, it's at -5. How about we do 10, not -10, but 10, all right? So this is having this kind of impact on the formation of this form. Let's look at this. Okay. All right, let's do something a little different with the ellipse. Bring it out this way. Once again, extrude CRV tapered. And whereas with the triangle I did a positive number, let's do, for the draft angle, let's do -20 and just kind of see. All right. We run into some funny issues here. Nothing we can't figure out. It's pretty interesting. Now, can I seal this really narrow shape up? I bet I can. With surface tools, surface from planar curves. Oops. And I'll select the whole thing and tip it upside down. And it already had a solid surface down there. Okay. I don't know where it came from, but cool. So I select it and it says one closed poly surface added to selection. Remember, the kinds of 3D structures that you create in Rhino, they should be, in order to translate them into something physical like a 3D print or a CNC machined part, or whatever, they have to be either closed polysurfaces or meshes. Those are best. All right, how about one more thing? This is, I will say there have been a few times where I've needed these tools. Make 2D and silhouette. So, all right, we've got, this is our example structure here. So let's position this in our viewport camera so it fills the whole thing out really well. I'll make it a bit more narrow. And with it selected, I'm going to say in the command bar, make 2D. And it asks me a lot of questions. I'm just going to say OK. And nothing happened right here, but if I go back to the origin, here we go. Here's our make 2D geometry. For anybody interested in designing and 3D printing things like gears, and let's say you're basing your design for gears off of an existing gear design, it doesn't seem right, but Make 2D is a very fast way of reverse engineering existing geometry. Imagine you did this from the top viewport. All right, let's use the same disk, or maybe, yeah, we'll use the same one. And I'll give it a slightly different quality here, and we'll do silhouette. All right, and let's, okay. So the silhouette geometry does not automatically transport to the origin. It'll be right over top your 3D model or whatever it is that you're creating a silhouette of. It's interesting. I've never really had a practical use for this though, but there you go. All right, let's put it down there for open and closed polysurfaces. All of these tools are super important. In fact, I think probably a good 30% of your time making models is going to be using surface tools like this, open and closed polysurfaces. All right, thank you all very much.